this is a project that I've wanted to do for quite some time, and that is to record a video on the bike paths in Narrabri. And I first got this idea when they built the track that runs across town from the west over to Cameron Park. And that was a couple of years ago they finished that, and then there was, except for this 30-metre gap opposite the outside the Thai Home restaurant, and really I put the project on hold for quite some time. But now finally the gap has been closed, and the road is now open. So I'm riding along here from the Pirate Park. I'm going to go across to Cameron Park, join up with the track that runs along the river, up Violet Street, and then back along the other side of the Narrabri Creek. So this is part of the lake track, the road that runs around the lake. It was open quite some time ago. I think the lake itself was completed around about 1994, and shortly afterwards the dual-purpose track path was installed, constructed then, and very little maintenance was done until earlier this decade, when the road was pretty much rebuilt from scratch. It's a very smooth road now. You can notice when I'm going onto the road onto Mooloolaba Street, just the increase in road noise. You won't notice it on this video, but I did notice it on the camera that I was recording on. I've had to record the commentary separate to the original video, because the camera that I recorded on just didn't pick up my voice at all. In fact, although it produces quite a good quality of video, the audio input leaves a lot to be desired, even if I hold it right in front of my face, which I couldn't do with this. It was actually strapped in a impact reducing box strapped to my handlebars, but even if I hold that camera in front of my face, it just doesn't pick up much volume of audio at all. Here we are at the cul-de-sac at the end of Mooloolaba Street, just going up now onto the bridge that crosses the creek here, which I think is O'Neill's Creek, and down to the left there you have the road that goes down to the underpass, allowing children to cross under the highway safely. So the path here is quite narrow, but still not a bad path for riding or for walking on. It's quite smooth at this stage, and it gives you a degree of separation from the traffic, which is a really good thing, I think. Along this path, I'm travelling a bit more slowly than I normally would. I normally average about 23 kilometres an hour. When I'm riding on the road, I'm taking it more slowly because I'm on a shared path, and I don't want to hit any pedestrians that might suddenly appear out of nowhere. We're going around this funny little bend here now to cross Bala Street. It's one of those things that's been designed in. I'm not convinced. I guess it's supposedly for safety to take. Oh, and here's the bus shelter, the first real hazard on this track, and the second one following is an oleander tree. The bus shelter takes up about 3/4 of the width of the path, and it really is a major obstacle. Along this section of the path, you have a number of trees that grow across the path, and while they produce welcome shade, the council will need to keep them well maintained over time to ensure that cyclists in particular don't get whacked on the head as they're going under. I didn't notice this this Balinese flag here at the Westside Petroleum. I was concentrating on dodging the NBN box there. That should have been moved further back, as should this telecom box that's there. Crossing now past the service station. And yeah, I was going to mention the flag, that Balinese flag at the Westside service station. I didn't notice going over, but coming back, I noticed there it's in a very inappropriate place, and with a bit of a breeze, it actually blocks the pathway. And so we're coming now to the more industrial part of the highway, and going outside Noel Burke's. That reminds me that at a number of places along here, you do have weeds growing up from in the cracks in the cement, and sometimes from either side of the path. And I did notice in summertime that catheads were growing quite profusely in these cracks. And of course, that's a hazard to cyclists because it's very hard to avoid getting puncture when you ride over those very sharp burrs. And again, that's a maintenance issue the council needs to address. I would suggest the use of regular use of Roundup at all places along the path, just for the safety, not just of cyclists, but also pedestrians wearing thongs or other lightweight footwear. So we're now approaching the BP, and by and large, this part of the track is really nice. It's wide, and here's the anomaly: the entry to the playing fields there is not sealed. It's just a very rough surface, covered in what would you call that? Asphalt, and it's not at all smoothed over. And I think really there's no reason why we couldn't have a much better maintained surface going through there. It's extremely rough, and nothing like the standard of the rest of the path. So now we're driving towards the BP. Light pole there, right in the middle of the path. That would be a hazard, I would imagine, for people that aren't paying attention. And we're coming up now to Ugoa Street. This crossing at Ugoa Street is extremely dangerous. The angle of Ugoa Street itself is, and the alignment of the intersection is pretty poor, but it means that right back here, we're watching traffic coming from the left in Ugoa Street. I can see traffic coming down the highway in front of me, but to see traffic that might want to turn into Ugoa Street from behind me is extremely difficult. The bus shelter here is more appropriately located than the previous one, so that's a good thing there. Coming now to Manning Street. These ramps across these streets, Manning Street and Ugoa Street, are very steep. And as you come, particularly coming up, you're going down into the gutter and then coming up, and that's quite a big bump that you have to go up to cross these roads. We're now on the Namoi River Bridge, and this is a series of concrete slabs, obviously moved to provide access to the facilities underneath. I think there's water pipes and other things. The infrastructure runs underneath the bridge at this point, it means that the ride there is very rough. Sure why I've stopped there, but I've stopped, and we're now continuing along. I like this particular stretch. It's more separated from the highway, and because it's open, you've got good visibility there. But it means you can rack up a bit of speed safely, and not worry about pedestrians or other cyclists that might appear from nowhere, because there's nowhere for them to appear from. We're coming now to the Lagoon Creek Bridge, another narrow section of path. All these bridges, you can't really do much about the paths on the side, I guess, but they do provide a bit of a hazard for cyclists and pedestrians. They do need to be careful there. I've picked up a bit of speed now coming down on the wider section of the pathway, and we're just ducking around a corner again to cross this street, Ann Street. I did notice coming back that the bend on the motel side of that corner there is extremely extremely tight, and it's clear that there was no thinking about cyclists that might need to zip around there. It's a bit of a tight fit indeed. This is the last part of the path to actually be finished. I noticed that workers were back there on my return trip, and this is the bit that was unfinished for a long time, just dug up and left like a big hole in the path, and that wasn't very satisfactory. Again, we're crossing Gibbon Street, not the best crossing for a relatively busy street, but I guess they've done the best they can. This part of the road is very nice. It's very smooth and quite wide, and quite a pleasure to ride on. I've got a pedestrian here that I slow down to overtake, hopefully without hitting him or her. Going there past the wooden homes, and another bus shelter, providing another level of challenge. We come now to Cameron Street, where the bike track actually ends here, and I'm going down to down through the park to join up with the park, the Riverside bike track. You notice that my camera has suddenly jerked up, and that's because of the nasty bump going down onto the road to cross Cameron Street. So I'm just going on the car park here. I found the start of the track, and it looks like I've adjusted. No, I haven't adjusted my camera yet. So we're looking at the tops of the trees. This track that runs along both sides of Narrabri Creek is a recreational track, and again, it's done to quite a high standard for most of the way. It's very popular during school holidays and weekends and whatnot. Many people go for walks along this track, as you can see. Further along here, the track does open out quite well. Here we go, and you can get a bit of speed up along here, because it's quite nice. It's it's fairly open. Nobody's going to jump in front of you. There aren't too many pedestrians. And I found myself able to get up a bit of speed, even though it's strictly a recreational track. I was probably travelling at closer to my more normal speed of 20, 22 kilometres an hour. So we're now approaching Violet Street. And yeah, it's very quiet along here. You could hear the birds chirping, and it's very nice. You're away from traffic. It's all that a bike path should be, except it doesn't actually take you anywhere apart from a nice little meander through the countryside, so to speak. If it was sort of plotted as a major route, then we could get there, and I'll address some of the challenges of why this is so difficult later as we approach Violet Street. So here we are getting close now to Violet Street, and you can see there to the left the Violet Street Bridge, but for some strange reason the road goes off to the right and stops. It goes up, follows parallel to Violet Street for a bit, and then just comes to a dead stop, and it goes nowhere, which is really odd. It's neither at the bridge nor at Gibbon Street. You can see why this would be okay for pedestrians crossing the road there and continuing on up the other side to the roundabout and then to the high school. I'm going back down now across Violet Street along the road. This is the Violet Street Bridge. And here's another very odd feature of this end of the bike path, and that is that to rejoin that path, you actually have to go right up to nearly Tiberina Street. It is unclear as to why that would be. And there you go on. And here you've got the width of the path, literally the width of the path, the length of a bike to conduct a U-turn. And it's just ridiculous. This post is a bit of a distraction. I know it's there to slow traffic down, keep people separate and discourage cars from being on there. But given the narrow straight side of the path at that point, it's very hard to avoid missing it, actually, or to avoid hitting it, more to the point. So here we are at the back of the caravan park now, and now as we travel down there, it's quite a nice road, nice track again, and nice for riding along. Not much to say here, except that, you know, again, this is a popular place. On a sunny day, this was far from a sunny day. It was a bitterly cold winter day. So now we're continuing back towards number 1 Oval, and again, this is a nice bit of road here through the bollards, meant to keep the cars away from the track. And we're heading down the back of the grandstand. This part's a bit rough, but not too bad for riding on. And we go through the bollards again, and continuing along here. And coming to the new part of the path, and we're going over the bridge, or under the bridge, I was a bit surprised to see low clearance 2.1 metres. Fortunately, I'm about 1.8 metres high or tall, and even though I ride fairly high, I wasn't perturbed by that that low clearance. You wouldn't want to ride a penny farthing under there though, or some other high bike. Again, this is a classic case of a recreational bike path. It really is nice along the creek here. They seem to have added extra squiggles, so obviously the purpose is for enjoying the journey rather than getting from point A to point B as quickly as possible. We're now behind number 2 oval, heading towards the crossing theatre and the car park there. And just past the picnic grounds, up towards the car park. And this is where the shared path officially ends. And by and large, it's not a bad ride, apart from those funny bits that I've mentioned along the way. And the bit around Violet Street in particular is just weird. It would put me off using that track as a commute. And I don't know whether people who are afraid of riding on the big bridge, as I was for a long time, whether they would be put off having to negotiate that bit around Violet Street where you actually go up the hill and then back down the hill, cross the bridge, up the other hill and then back on. It seems to make a very long detour to the bridge. I'm now heading along the highway towards Moree. I was going to do a bit of a bike ride along here today and go out along Killarney Gap Road, although it ended up being quite cold and gloomy, and so I didn't go as far as I intended. But what I did notice I was walking along is that, there's plenty of scope here for more bike track, for bike paths to get bikes off the highway. At this point, it's hugely wide, and you've got plenty of scope either for wider paths that can be designated as shared path, or even just a painted line along the edge of the highway there, because it is so wide. And they could do something with that corner and again along here. And that would mean that you could ride from my place in Mooloolaba Street along bike paths right for the entire length of town almost. I think if I was going to do that, though, I'd still go back onto the road for the bike crossing, go over to the river crossing, go over the big bridge. But look, even out here, there's still lots of space, and I'm sure that if the council were to construct a bike path that takes bikes out along this main arterial road out towards Moree, then many, many more people would use it. Oh, we've skipped a bit. I'm heading back into town now from that northern part again, just going past KFC and heading around the corner there and back towards the crossing theatre. And again, this side of the road is also very wide, and some really nice wide paths could be put in there, or again, even just lines on the road to delineate a cycling lane would make people feel a lot safer and able to ride. It'd be really cool to have bike paths or bike lanes on both sides of the highway through here. I decided that the best approach to going home was to follow the highway right up to the bridge and turn right. It's not the safest along here, but it's not too bad. There is quite a wide shoulder. The biggest hazard that you have is you have to give parked vehicles a wide berth just to ensure that you don't get hit by somebody opening a door as you're going past. So I'm pulling out now into the traffic, turning right. And here we go, turning onto the bridge. Always amazed at how easy it is to get around this corner. It's not the best, I've got to say. It's basically designed for cars and trucks. But yeah, if there's not a real lot of traffic, it's not too bad going around that corner. The bridge is narrow. Sometimes drivers get a bit impatient and overtake, and at that point you do face people passing you less than the minimum 1 metre that's required by law. From here we're going down to, I'm going to turn right into Cameron Street. And pick up the cross. Something's bumped my camera and we're pointing at the sky again. Just waiting for the traffic to clear here. And we're going around the corner into Cameron Street and onto the cycle path. Obviously, I didn't notice that camera was pointing upwards for quite some time. Going past the bus shelter, past some trees. This is the Widden home. Gives you a different perspective coming back along this way. You pick up things that you don't see going the other way. This is that would have been Gibbons Street, I'm guessing. You're at the Thai restaurant again. Pity that you can't actually see the ground level. We had some workers turn up. I think they're there to finalise the concreting along the edges of the path here. Here we are at the Ampole. Now along here at some stage, nearly got collected. I think it was at Gibbons Street. Well, it might have been Ugoa Street. I'm not sure which now. No, it was Ugoa Street. Anyway, the crossing there is not safe at all. There we go. We're back on the road, but whichever corner it was, we had a bit of a. It wasn't a near miss, but you can see how accidents can happen. A car comes around the corner, you're focused on the traffic coming to the right. You can't see the traffic coming around behind you. They can't see you because you're standing on the curb, or you're on the bike, and then you're halfway across the road and there's a car coming around the corner. And on that particular instance, a car came from on the right as well. So, I thought I had enough time to get across. But then I had to stop to not collide with the car coming from the left, and it ended up with the car coming from the right, being very close to me indeed. This is that bridge over the Namoi River, I think. And there's a big bump there, which I should have mentioned earlier, going up onto that crossing. The gap, you don't notice it heading south, but heading north, but heading back south. Big jump. It's got a metal cover, but really it's not a very good ride onto the bridge. So here we are between Manning Street and Ugoa Street. And again, we have that awful approach where you can do a U-turn. And yeah, that's the, see how I couldn't see that ute. I'm not sure where my those poles just seem a bit more threatening when you're coming this way. Not sure why. Here's that disgusting rough patch of rough. And you might have seen there the weeds that grow up on that patch. And again, that's bad because in spring and summer, they will turn to cat heads, and people will be getting punctures, and they will just put them off riding on the track, at least for this part of it. Back to the industrialised part of Cooma Road now, and not a lot to say about this bit. That's Noel Burke's, and we're coming up to the West Side petrol station. It's the bridge, and there was enough of a bump there to knock the camera. Coming down to another one of those crossings. Stopping for traffic. And here we go up the bump, around the curve, almost hit the phone box. And there you can see that advertising flag on it's actually on the path. And between the NBN box there and the flag, it's a bit of a hazard. This is the high part, going under the trees again. And I do hope the council keeps these trees cut back, because that's another possible hazard. You wouldn't want to hit your head when you're travelling at 15 kilometres an hour. Round the mulberry bush, zigzagging our way to the crossing, and back to Gately Field. And we're now approaching the end again of the crosstown path. We're just coming up now to this bridge, the O'Neill's Creek Bridge. And again, this is an area where in the past I've noticed when I've been walking, you get the catheads growing in that dirt to the left there, and to a lesser extent, I guess, to the right as well. And the plants actually grow onto the path there and leave their burrs at the peak of summer. And that is a big disincentive for people to ride bikes. Just coming down now to the cul-de-sac at Mooloolaba Street, and that is the end of this particular journey.